Rain was already coming down by the time I lit my second cigarette. The air in Savannah always had a kind of heaviness to it, sweet like rot and thick like memory. It clings to your skin and settles in your lungs, makes it hard to breathe and harder to forget, especially when you're the one people call when things go wrong. And lately, things went wrong a lot. Her name was Emily Corwin, 19, honors student at Mercer College. Blonde, blue-eyed, the kind of girl that gets press, the kind of girl whose father sits on the bench at Chatham County Superior Court, the kind of case I hate. I didn't want this one. I didn't like working for men who wore robes during the day and wielded secrets at night. But a man like Judge Corwin doesn't ask. He sends someone to my office, drops an envelope on my desk, and calls it a favor. Inside the envelope, a photo of Emily, smiling in a summer dress, with eyes too old for her age, a $5,000 retainer in fresh hundreds, a note with 4 words, discreet, fast, no police. He knew better than to involve the department. Cops here are like good bourbon, slow and crooked. I took a drag. I stared at her face. Something in her expression didn't sit right. People smile like that when they know they're being watched. I started at the dorm. Her roommate, some rich girl from Atlanta with red nails and an empty laugh, said Emily left Friday night to meet someone. Wouldn't say who. She just said she had to make something right, she told me, chewing gum like she was paid to waste time. No forced entry. No signs of a struggle. Room neat. Too neat. Girls don't leave their favorite necklace behind unless they mean to come back. They always think they're coming back. Next stop was the coffee shop where Emily worked weekends. Closed, lights off. The kind of place that served $7 lattes and bored philosophy majors. A barista named Troy, early 20s, tattoos up his neck and a nervous tick in his left eye, said she'd been distracted lately, checking her phone a lot, jumping at shadows. I asked if she was in trouble, he said. She smiled and said, "Not yet." Not yet. Hell of a thing to say. At 11:42 p.m., I sat in my Buick, rain turning my windshield into a Monet painting, listening to the ticking of the dashboard clock. I replayed her smile in my head, the one from the photo, wide but hollow, like a girl posing for someone she didn't trust. The city was quiet, but my gut wasn't. Missing girls don't just vanish, not here. Here, they're erased, like chalk off the pavement when the rain starts to fall. And something told me Emily Corwin didn't run away. She was taken. The next morning, the rain stopped, but the heat stayed. Thick, wet, and mean, like a fever that wouldn't break. Savannah has a way of sweating the truth out of a man, whether he wants to spill it or not. I started digging. Emily Corwin didn't have a criminal record, not even a library fine. Her grades were perfect. No known boyfriends. At least not on paper. But girls like her don't live in bubbles. Someone always sees something. So I went to the only place in this town where secrets walk around like customers. Benny's Tavern on Habersham. Place smelled like old beer, regret, and bleach that never quite finished the job. Behind the bar, Benny was polishing a glass that didn't need polishing. A former cop. Retired early with a pension and a bad back. He sees everything, says nothing. Unless you buy him a shot and use the right name. I slid 100 across the counter. "Tell me about the judge's girl." He looked at the bill, then at me. "You don't want to get involved in that, Holloway." Too late. He poured himself bourbon, didn't sip. Word is, she was looking for someone, asking around about a man named Grayson Keller. I felt a crack in the back of my skull, like a memory trying to get out. Grayson Keller. I hadn't heard that name in 15 years. Keller used to run girls through Tybee Island. Smart, mean, untouchable. Disappeared after a raid in '09. Body never found. Cops said he fled the country. But some of us knew better. Because I was there the night he vanished. And so was Judge Corwin. I left Benny's with a bad taste in my mouth and a worse one in my head. Drove to the courthouse. Marble steps, steel doors, justice in theory. Judge Corwin's office was too clean, too quiet. He wore a navy suit and a face carved out of politics. He looked at me like I was a mosquito buzzing around his empire. "I told you to be discreet," he said, without offering a seat. "She was looking for Grayson Keller," I replied. "You want to tell me why?" The corner of his eye twitched, just a flicker, but I saw it. "She's a child. She doesn't know what she's doing. She's not a child anymore." He leaned forward, voice low. "Whatever she found, bury it, bring her home, and walk away. But if she's dead," he didn't flinch, "then make sure it stays quiet." That was when I knew. He wasn't looking for his daughter. He was looking for the mess she left behind. I drove to the old rail yard where Keller used to do business. It had been shut down for years, but rust doesn't forget. Neither do bloodstains. The shack where they used to keep the girl. I stepped outside just in time to see the shadow duck behind a rusted container. I didn't chase. I knew what this was now. Emily Corwin wasn't just missing. She was hunting something. And I was walking straight into the trap she set. By noon, the clouds rolled back in like bad news on a long leash. I stopped by my office to check the tape. The hallway camera, the one facing the front entrance, had glitched around 10:42 that morning. 3 minutes of static. Someone had been there. Inside, nothing was missing. But the ashtray on my desk had been moved half an inch. Someone wanted me to know they'd come and gone. Not a threat, a message. I sat down, cracked my knuckles, and looked at the board behind my desk. Photos, strings, names. Emily Corwin, Grayson Keller, Judge Corwin. And now, a voice I couldn't place, telling me not to trust anyone. My kind of party. I needed a crack. Just one slip in the mask. That's when I remembered the necklace. Emily's roommate said she always wore it. Small silver locket, left on the nightstand like a breadcrumb. Girls don't take off things that matter, unless they're making a point. I dug into the locket, careful with a knife. Inside wasn't a photo. It was a micro SD card. Jackpot. My laptop hissed to life. The screen lit up with grainy footage. No sound, just video files, all time-stamped late at night. The first one showed a hotel room, cheap furniture, flickering TV, Emily pacing back and forth. Then, a man enters, mid-30s, confident, smiling. Grayson Keller, older, alive, not hiding. The next two clips were meetings, quiet, intense. She handed him something, a folder. He looked scared. And then, in the last video, he slapped her, hard. She didn't run. She stared back like a girl who had already made peace with dying. I sat there in the dark, fists clenched. Emily wasn't lost. She was bait. The address on the footage traced back to a motel near the state line. Abandoned 2 years ago, boarded up since a meth fire took out half the east wing. I drove there with a Glock under my coat. and a knot in my stomach. The kind you only get when you're about to see something you can't unsee. The door to room 12 was open. Inside, the walls were burned black. The floor sagged. But something on the bed caught my eye. A phone. Emily's. I picked it up. Still warm. Someone had been here less than an hour ago. Then I heard it. A breath. Not mine. I turned. Too late. Something cracked across the back of my head. The world tilted, blurred, broke, and went black. I woke up in a back room of a run-down warehouse, my head pounding like a freight train. The taste of blood was thick in my mouth, and the dim light made everything feel like a bad dream. A shadow moved across the cracked concrete floor.
Glad you're awake.
A voice said, low, cold. I tried to sit up. My wrists were bound. The pain in my temple flared when I moved. Who the hell are you? I rasped. The man stepped closer, tall, lean, with eyes like a predator sizing up its prey. Call me Graves, he said. You've been poking around places you shouldn't, asking questions about Grayson Keller and the Corwins. I swallowed hard. What do you want? To make sure you understand one thing. Some truths are better left buried. Graves leaned in, his breath smelling of whiskey and regret. Emily's gone missing for a reason, and if you keep digging, you'll be next. I laughed, bitter, shaky. I'm not scared of ghosts. Graves smirked. You should be. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a photo. It was Emily, but different. Her eyes weren't frightened. They were full of something else, defiance. Look closer, Graves said. I did. A tiny red mark on her wrist, the kind of mark you don't get from a fall, a brand. She's part of something bigger, Graves whispered, something older, something dangerous. And I was in the middle of it all. Back in my office, I peeled the tape off my bruised forehead and stared at the ceiling. The brand on Emily's wrist, that little detail haunted me. I'd seen it before, a long time ago, but where? Then it hit me. A name whispered through the back of my mind, my father. He was a cop once, too, before the dirt swallowed him whole. I called my mother, though I hadn't spoken to her in years. Mom, I said, voice rough, do you know anything about a mark, like a brand? There was a long pause. Yes, she finally whispered. It's old, from a group, secret. We never talked about it. Which group? She sighed. The kind you don't want to find. Families with secrets so dark they stay buried in silence. I knew then Emily's story wasn't just about her. It was about every lie my family ever told me. The line went dead. Later that night, I found myself at the graveyard where my father was buried. The wind whispered through the oaks like ghosts trying to tell me something. I traced my fingers over the worn stone. Dad, I muttered, what have you left me? The next morning, Savannah was drenched in sunlight, but the shadows in my mind only grew darker. I pulled out the dusty box of old case files from my father's time on the force. Most were yellowed and faded, but one stood out, a file labeled the Red Brand. Inside, there were notes, photos, and a report about a secret society that ran deep in the city's underbelly. Families intertwined by blood, power, and silence. The brand was their mark, a symbol of allegiance, but also control. I found a photo of a man with a familiar jawline, eyes sharp and cold. My father. He was tangled in something I never knew about. The report mentioned Grayson Keller, too, linked to the society through illegal trades and cover-ups. Keller was no ghost. He was a key player. As I flipped through the pages, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Stop digging, Holloway, or you'll drown with her. My fingers trembled. This wasn't just a missing girl anymore. It was a war I'd been born into. That night, the city felt colder than usual. The kind of cold that seeps into your bones and never lets go. I met with an old contact, Marla, a reporter who'd lost faith in the system but never stopped chasing the truth. She slid a manila envelope across the table. Inside, photos, transcripts, and names linked to the Red Brand Society. The deeper you dig, the more snakes you'll find, she warned. Keller's just the tip. She looked at me, eyes sharp. Your family's tangled in this more than you know. I clenched my jaw. So what's the play? Marla smiled, bitter. Expose them all, but watch your back. I left with more questions than answers. But one thing was clear, I wasn't alone in this fight. The next day, I watched Judge Corwin from across the street. His face a mask of calm and control. But I'd learned better than to trust the masks people wear in this town. I followed him to a private club hidden beneath the city. Velvet curtains, expensive liquor, and whispers that could break bones. Inside, powerful men and women exchange promises and threats, their laughter thin and brittle. Judge Corwin met with a man I recognized from the old files, a man with the Red Brand tattooed on his hand. They spoke in low voices. I caught fragments. Too close to the truth. Deal with Holloway. Before it's too late. I snapped a picture, heart pounding. Walking away, I realized the war was no longer just about Emily. It was about survival. That night, I received an unexpected visitor. Emily's roommate, Claire. Her eyes were red, face pale. I didn't tell you everything, she whispered. Emily was scared. Not just of Grace and Keller, but of her own family. She pulled out a crumpled envelope. Inside, letters from Emily. Desperate, scared, begging for help. She wrote about abuse, lies, and secrets buried deeper than anyone knew. Her brother, Claire said, voice breaking. He wasn't who we thought. He's dangerous. I felt the room close in on me. Family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's the monsters hiding behind the doors. The morning light was harsh through my blinds, but I didn't care. I was too busy unraveling the threads Claire handed me. Emily's brother, a well-respected lawyer named Michael Corwin, had a dark side no one spoke of. Rumors of violence, threats against those who crossed him. I dug into his past and found police reports. Dismissed, buried, swept under the courthouse floor. I reached out to an old friend on the force. His face went pale when I mentioned Michael. He's dangerous, Holloway. You're playing with fire. I knew I had to tread carefully. But Emily's ghost was pulling me deeper. I met Michael Corwin at a downtown bar, the kind where deals are made and lives are broken. He was calm, polished, a man who could convince a jury his innocence with a smile. Detective, he said, sliding into the booth. I hear you're asking questions best left alone. I leaned forward. Where's Emily, Michael? His eyes flickered. I don't know, but you should stop digging. It's dangerous. I reached into my coat and pulled out a photo, the one I snapped at the private club. That night, you were there. Who were you meeting? He sighed. Old friends, we all have skeletons, Holloway. But some skeletons don't stay buried. Late that night, I found myself digging through my father's old belongings in the attic, dusty boxes filled with photographs, letters, and secrets. Among them was a faded journal. Its pages detailed his struggle against the Red Brand Society, how he'd tried to expose corruption but was silenced. A name kept appearing. Elena Corwin. My mind raced. Elena was Judge Corwin's late wife, Emily's mother. The journal hinted at betrayals, cover-ups, and a warning. Trust no one. The family you see is a lie. The past wasn't just history. It was a warning written in blood.
I found Alana Corwin.
Not in a grave like I'd been led to believe, but in a quiet hospice, an hour outside Savannah, hidden under a different name. She was thin, pale, and drifting between worlds. But when she saw me, her eyes sharpened like a knife through fog. "You look like your father," she rasped. "I need to know the truth," I said. She laughed, soft, bitter. "There is no truth, only versions." But she told me about the red brand, about how she tried to leave, about how Judge Corwin and Keller silenced anyone who stood in their way, including my father, and about Emily. She found my letters. She knew everything. She wanted to end it. "Where is she?" I asked. Elena's lips trembled. "They'll kill her, just like they killed me." Her monitor beeped faster. She gripped my hand. "End it." That night I returned to the old motel on the edge of town. Room 12. One light flickered inside. Emily was there, alive, shaken, but alive. "I knew someone would come," she said, voice raw. She told me everything, how she uncovered the society's crimes, how her father had faked her death to silence her, how Keller was working for Michael now, tying up the loose ends. "They branded me when I was 12, she said. "Not because I was chosen, because I was theirs." I felt something inside me break. She handed me a USB drive. "Everything's on here. Then let's burn them down." We stepped outside, and Graves was waiting, gun drawn. "This ends tonight," he growled. I drew mine. One shot, then silence. The news hit like a storm. Corruption in the courts, ties to trafficking, judges, lawyers, even cops exposed. The USB went viral. Marla's article blew the doors off Savannah's quiet little world. Emily disappeared again, this time for good, off the grid, somewhere safe. I stood on the banks of the Savannah River, the city behind me burning with headlines and regret. Justice? Maybe. But there were no heroes in this story, just survivors and ghosts. I lit a cigarette, let the wind take the smoke, and finally I let go.